Good afternoon and welcome to this webinar. I welcome all to this webinar today. Today's webinar topic is silent features of arbitration, recent amendments and effect of COVID-19 lockdown on arbitration proceedings. This session would be conducted by Honorable Mr. Justice R.D. Dhanuka sir. The session is being organized by Maharashtra Judicial Academy in collaboration with Bar Council of Maharashtra and Goa, Consumer Court Advocates Association, interactive session of lady lawyers, and SSC Online. On behalf of SSC Online, I would like to welcome all the members who have really been with us in managing and this bringing this webinar to public. Now, I would request Sudhakar Yellagara sir, who is the Joint Director for Maharashtra Judicial Council. Please welcome Lordship, and then Lordship can start the session. Sir.
Thank you, Chetan. Good evening to Honorable Lordships, Honorable Judges, respected and learned advocates, and today's guest speaker, Honorable Sri Justice R.D. Dhanuka sir. I'm very glad to welcome all of you to this webinar on the earlier mentioned subject. And in the beginning itself, I welcome the gesture of the Bar Council of Maharashtra and Goa, the Consumer Courts Advocates Association, and the interactive session of Lady Lawyers Mumbai for joining with the Academy for this webinar. And I thank all of you. And without taking much time, I will give brief introduction of today's speaker. Today's speaker, Honorable Sri Justice R.D. Dhanuka sir, in fact, is very well known. His Lordship has been working in the capacity of a sitting judge of the Bombay High Court. I will give brief introduction. Honorable Lordship was born on 31st May 1961, did his schooling in Mumbai, did his BCom and LLB from the University of Bombay. Lordship secured first class and stood second in the third year law examination conducted by the University of Bombay in 1985. Lordship started practice of law at Bombay High Court in 1985 in the chamber of Sri Justice D.R. Dhanuka till his elevation as High Court of Judge of Bombay in 1990. Lordship joined the chamber of Sri S.R. Shah, retired city civil judge and the then leading senior advocate in the year 1990. Lordship practiced in Bombay High Court on the sides of constitutional law and other branches of law, and particularly arbitration, Companies Act, suits, testamentary, municipal laws, service law, rent act, etc. His Lordship was on the senior counsel panel of Municipal Corporation of Greater Mumbai. His Lordship joined and elevated as the additional judge of Bombay High Court on 23rd January 2012. His Lordship took the charge as officiating director of this Maharashtra Judicial Academy on 26 February 2020. My Lord, it's my honor to welcome you on behalf of all the participants and the Academy. And my Lord, I request Your Honor to start the session.
Thank you, Mr. Yellagada and Mr. Singh. I will divide my lecture in three parts. First part would be the necessity of existence of arbitration agreement. Second would be the provisions applicable during the course of arbitral proceedings. And third would be post-award. First of all, I must tell you that unless arbitration agreement exists between the parties, matter can't be referred to arbitration. As all of you know, section 89 of CPC, court has power to persuade parties to refer disputes to all the modes of ADR, including arbitration, but court cannot compel any party to go to arbitration. However, at any stage of the proceedings, parties may agree for referring their disputes to arbitration by entering into an agreement. Recently, Supreme Court has taken a view in one of the matters that even if parties agree to refer their respective disputes to arbitration under Section 89 and enter into such agreement at any stage of any proceedings, including the proceedings before Supreme Court, court has to record an agreement in writing. But minutes of the meeting can be, minutes of the order can be filed before the Supreme Court or any court or any judicial authority for recording an agreement between the parties. Now, Section 7 provides for arbitration agreement. Arbitration agreement, it is in writing if it is contained in a document or it is recorded by way of letter, telex, telegram, and now by virtue of amendment in 2015 by recording agreement even by email. Another facet of Section 7 is that even if arbitration agreement is asserted in statement of claim before the arbitral tribunal directly and it is not denied in the written statement, that will also amount to existence of arbitration agreement. And the last facet of Section 7 is that if parties have entered into an agreement and in that agreement there is a reference to another agreement which records arbitration agreement and intention is clear, then doctrine of incorporation will apply, and in that event, even such document would be treated as an arbitration agreement. Now, who can be party to arbitration agreement? Any person who is capable of executing a contract can be a party to arbitration agreement. Now, once arbitration agreement is there, then the next step is what is the procedure prescribed under the arbitration agreement for referring the dispute to arbitration. If suppose your agreement provides that a mandatory procedure is required to be followed, I will give you an illustration. Suppose agreement says that all claims have to be notified to the project manager or director or some engineer. If you invoke arbitration agreement before following that mandatory procedure, your application would be premature and application for appointment of arbitrator filed in court in future would be rejected on that ground. So you have to see what is the mandatory procedure, if any, prescribed in the arbitration agreement, and then only you proceed accordingly. Once arbitration agreement is entered into and there is no dispute about that, at least by one party, and arbitrator is appointed by parties according to the provisions in the arbitration agreement, then matter can be referred to arbitration. That is called appointment of arbitrator without intervention of court. However, the respondent who is no party to appointment of arbitrator, he can raise an issue of jurisdiction under Section 16 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act before filing first statement of defense. If he does not raise that objection within the time prescribed at the stage prescribed under Section 16, that may amount to waiver. So once arbitration agreement is there and arbitrator is appointed by parties, then there is no problem. You don't have to invoke Section 11 for appointment of arbitrator before High Court or the Supreme Court, as the case may be. Now, what happens if matter is proceeded before arbitrator and one of the party dies, or the company who is a party to the arbitration agreement is in liquidation, or the party becomes insolvent? Whether arbitration agreement comes to an end, the answer is no. That is taken care of by Section 40 and 41 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act. In case of an individual, his legal heirs or legal representatives can be allowed to pursue the arbitration proceedings, or they can be brought on record in place of the member who is party to the arbitration agreement. In case of a company which is wound up, in that event official liquidator can be brought on record, or if that company was a claimant, then official liquidator can pursue the arbitration proceedings on behalf of that party to arbitration agreement. In case of insolvency, if one of the member has become insolvent, then official assignee can take over that proceeding and represent such member who was party to the arbitration proceedings and party to the arbitration agreement. So arbitration agreement does not come to an end even if one of the party dies. Now, who can appoint an arbitrator on this? Recently, an interesting judgment came to be delivered by Supreme Court in case of Perkins Eastman Architects versus HSCC 2019 SSC Online 1517. The issue before the Honorable Supreme Court was that under the arbitration agreement, only one of the party was allowed to appoint an arbitrator. Supreme Court has held that a party to the arbitration agreement who is exclusively permitted to appoint an arbitrator will have an interest in the subject matter of the dispute. Therefore, such party cannot be allowed to appoint an arbitrator exclusively. That part of the arbitration clause has to be considered as redundant, and both parties should be given a chance to appoint an arbitrator. As a result of this, all these provisions, particularly in finance company lease agreements or loan agreement, or in case of railways or state government or any such undertaking where power to appoint arbitrator was given exclusively to one party and without any say of the other party, that power is now taken away by virtue of this important ruling delivered by the Supreme Court recently. Now, what happens if parties do not appoint arbitrator in accordance with the arbitration agreement? In that event, the remedy of filing an application under section 11 can be placed in service. One of the party who has given notice to the other party for appointment of arbitrator, if after expiry of 30 days arbitrator is not appointed, then that party can file an application before High Court or Supreme Court as the case may be. Why before High Court or Supreme Court? In case of a domestic arbitration where part 1 applies, application has to be made before High Court, and in case of international commercial arbitration where one of the parties is a foreigner or a company registered abroad, that would fall under section 21F, that is international commercial arbitration, and in that event the application can be made only before Supreme Court of India and not before High Court. Now, what are the powers? Let me give you a little background of section 11, the little history without wasting much time. Prior to 2005, the power to appoint arbitrator vests in the Chief Justice of High Court in case of domestic arbitration or his designate, or in Chief Justice of India or his designate in case of international commercial arbitration. Now, several judgments came to be delivered by Supreme Court. The last leading judgment was in case of Konkan Railway versus Rani Construction, where the Supreme Court took a view that since power to appoint an arbitrator vests in Chief Justice is not a court, and therefore the order that may be passed by Chief Justice would be an administrative order and not a judicial order. Now, as a result of that ruling, what was happening was that orders of Chief Justice or his designate in High Court would be challenged by way of writ petition, and two judges junior to Chief Justice could have set aside the judgment of Chief Justice. And another problem arose because of that judgment was that since proceedings were not judicial proceedings, therefore provisions of Limitation Act were not made applicable. Provisions of CPC and Evidence Contempt of Court Act were not made applicable. So any person who did not want to obey the order passed by the Chief Justice, he would not bother, and because provisions of Contempt of Court Act were not made applicable. As a result of that, ultimately in 2005, in case of SBP versus Patel Engineering, 7 judges of Supreme Court ultimately took a view that no, order that is passed by the Chief Justice under section 11 or his designate is not an administrative order, but it will be a judicial order. But in that judgment also, Supreme Court did not say that these proceedings were the proceedings before court. Ultimately in 2015, with effect from 23rd October 2015, an amendment came to be introduced in section 11, and the word Chief Justice of India or Chief Justice of High Court, as the case may be, were substituted by the word court. As a result of that amendment, now all proceedings under section 11 are before court. Therefore, provisions of Limitation Act are applicable, provisions of CPC are applicable, provisions of Contempt of Courts are applicable. But in section 11, whatever orders are passed by the court now, by High Court, there is no appeal before the High Court itself, but only special leave petition under Article 136 of Constitution of India can be filed before the Honorable Supreme Court. Now in what circumstances Section 11 can be invoked? Section 11 can be invoked if both the parties do not agree for appointment of arbitrator, or in case of 3 arbitrators, if 2 arbitrators nominated by the parties do not appoint a 3rd arbitrator, even in that event you can file an application under Section 11(6) before High Court and before Supreme Court in case of 11(9) in case of international commercial arbitration. So once arbitrator is appointed by court, then matter is referred to arbitration. At this juncture, I must also tell you, recently in one matter, our full bench of Bombay High Court, while considering the issue under Section 9 as well as under Section 11, that if document which contains arbitration agreement is not sufficiently stamped, then whether arbitrator can be appointed by court or not, or whether interim relief can be granted by court under Section 9 or not, had taken a view that in view of Section 11(6) capital A, which at that point of time was in force, said that power of court is confined to existence of arbitration agreement. Full bench of our court took a view that even if document is not sufficiently stamped, you cannot refuse to appoint an arbitrator, or you cannot refuse to grant interim relief in favor of a party. That issue will be taken care of before the arbitral tribunal once the arbitral tribunal is in place. However, in another matter arising out of Bombay High Court, Supreme Court took a view in case of Garware Ropewell that no, unless document is sufficiently stamped, the document is not a document in eyes of law. Therefore, till document is stamped, no arbitrator can be appointed. Now, what has happened is that full bench judgment insofar as Section 11 is concerned is overruled by the Supreme Court by that judgment. But full bench judgment insofar as Section 9 is concerned is not, it is still in place and not set aside by the Supreme Court or overruled by or overruled. Now, as a result of that, what is happening is that if application under Section 11 is filed, then the issue of stamping is raised by the party. But if you apply for interim relief under Section 9, that full bench judgment is still being in place. That is made applicable. So this is one of the lacuna. I hope at some stage this lacuna also should be sorted out by the Honorable Supreme Court. Now, once arbitrator is appointed by High Court or the Supreme Court, as the case may be, then what happens? Then the arbitral tribunal is constituted. He gives directions for filing pleadings and also directs for payment of deposit of his fees. But the next question immediately arises is that whether every dispute can be referred to arbitration or not, though arbitration agreement exists. That is very crucial question. In case of Booz Allen's Hamilton, this issue was concluded by the Honorable Supreme Court, and Supreme Court held that though arbitration agreement exists, but if action is an action in rem, where more than 2 parties to the arbitration agreement are going to be affected, or where the dispute which is sought to be referred to arbitration is to be tried only by a particular court exclusively, in that event, even if parties give consent, it can't be referred to arbitration. Only a dispute in personam can be referred to arbitration and not in rem. Now, Supreme Court in that judgment has carved out various categories such as dispute relating to criminal offence, matrimonial dispute, guardianship dispute, insolvency or winding up dispute, testamentary proceedings, tenancy proceedings, suit for redemption of mortgage, trust matters, etc. If these type of disputes are there, though there is arbitration agreement, it can't be referred to arbitration. In one of the matter, before me, I had occasion to decide that matter. Before the arbitral tribunal, though the matter was relating to one of the intellectual property dispute. It was relating to copyright. None of the parties brought it to the notice of the learned arbitrator that this dispute is an action in rem. This can't be referred to arbitration. Arbitrator decided that issue. Ultimately, petition was filed in High Court, and before High Court, this issue was raised for the first time that this was an action in rem. Therefore, though no objection was raised before the arbitral tribunal that this was a copyright dispute, whether that objection can be raised before the High Court under Section 34 or not. Section 4 was placed in service. This court took a view that no, this was a case of inherent lack of jurisdiction because it was an action in rem. Therefore, even if no objection is raised by the respondent, particularly before the arbitral tribunal, that copyright issue cannot be referred to arbitration. But since arbitrator lacked jurisdiction, arbitration court under Section 34 can consider that objection for the first time and set aside the award. That was the view taken by High Court. But at this juncture, I must also refer to Section 4, which talks about waiver. Suppose there is not a case of inherent lack of jurisdiction, but Section 4 provides for two situations. One is that if party knows that certain procedure prescribed under the arbitration agreement or provisions of Part 1 are not followed, and knowing well that it is not followed, but no objection is raised by the party, then it would amount to waiver. Now on waiver, I must give you two illustrations and go to the next topic. Supreme Court in case of Narayan Prasad Lohiya's case had considered a situation where two arbitrators, they proceeded with the proceedings and rendered an award. Contrary to Section 10, which says that arbitrators cannot be of even number. But nobody raised that objection before the arbitral tribunal, even before the High Court. Objection was raised before the Supreme Court for the first time. Supreme Court ultimately took a view that no, this provision of Section 10, which says that arbitrators cannot be of even numbers, is a derogable provision. And therefore, since you have not raised that objection at the appropriate time before the arbitral tribunal under Section 16, it will amount to waiver. I will give you another example. I had occasion to decide one matter where it was a family dispute, and both the parties were laymen. They were not able to understand how to proceed with the arbitration. So they nominated one of their family friend as arbitrator. He was also non-metric. He was not aware of the proceedings, how to conduct arbitral proceedings, what are the provisions of Arbitration Act. So what he was doing is that he was discussing the dispute with the parties orally. What do you want? He will say something, then he will communicate that demand to the respondent, and respondent demand will be communicated to the claimant. And this way he heard both the parties orally and made an award. Nobody raised an objection that statement of claim was not even filed before the arbitral tribunal. Matter came to High Court under Section 34, and issue was raised that without any statement of claim, how could arbitral tribunal make an award? Respondent who lost before the arbitral tribunal challenged that award on the ground that there was no opportunity to meet the case of the claimant. I did not file any written statement because he did not file any statement of claim. So issue of waiver was argued before me, and the view taken by the High Court was that no, statement of claim is mandatory because this is the statement which gives an opportunity to the other side to meet his case. So if you don't file statement of claim, other side can't file written statement, other side can't file counterclaim. Therefore, though no objection under Section 16 or under Section 23 was raised before the arbitral tribunal, this is a fundamental defect and this is not a derogable provision, and thus Section 4 cannot be placed in service in this type of situation. Now, once arbitral tribunal is constituted, he will decide various issues. If there is an issue of existence of arbitration agreement or there is dispute about the existence of jurisdiction on various counts, arbitrability or other issues. That situation may arise when parties themselves have appointed arbitrator without intervention of court. So under section 16, issue of jurisdiction has to be raised before filing first statement of defense. There also there are conflicting views, but most of the judges have taken a view that once objection of jurisdiction is not raised within the first in the written statement itself, then that may amount to waiver. But again, there are judgments that if there is inherent lack of jurisdiction, then even if that objection is not raised, then that objection can be taken care of by court under section 34 of the Arbitration Act. But if section 11 court appoints arbitrator, then you have to raise an issue of existence of arbitration agreement before the court itself. And once court decides that issue and arbitrator is appointed, then that issue cannot be allowed to be raised again before the arbitral tribunal. So this is about section 16. Now, once arbitrator decides that issue under section 16 one way or the other, suppose he accepts the plea that he has no jurisdiction, then what happens? Then he has to terminate the proceedings, and that order passed by the arbitral tribunal can be subject matter of an appeal under section 37. But if arbitral tribunal says that no, I have jurisdiction, then you cannot challenge that part of the order immediately before the High Court or the relevant court, but you have to wait till final award is rendered by the arbitral tribunal. Once that is decided, then he will proceed with the matter. If witness summons are required to be issued, suppose one of the party wants to examine a witness, he is not willing to come as a witness before the arbitral tribunal, then arbitral tribunal has no power to issue any witness summons to such party or to produce any documents which are in custody of a third party or lying with the parties to the arbitral proceedings. In that event, such party who wants witness summons to be issued has to apply before the arbitral tribunal that this is the document I want the particular party to produce, or I want witness summons. Arbitrator, if he is satisfied that yes, his presence will be necessary or documents can be produced, then he will pass an appropriate order, and on the basis of that order, such party can apply before appropriate court for seeking court's assistance under section 27. And in that event, if court is satisfied, court will pass an order for issuance of witness summons to lead evidence or to produce document as the case may be. Once this is done, then arbitral tribunal also has power to grant interim measures. That is under section 17. So interim measures can be applied before the arbitral tribunal. There was an amendment to section 17 in 2015 made effective from 23rd October 2015. The amendment was that all powers which vest in court under section 9 for granting interim measures, identical powers were given to arbitral tribunal also under section 17. One additional amendment which is interesting and important, which I must share with you, is that the order that would be passed by the arbitral tribunal under section 17, if it is not challenged or the challenge is not successful under section 37, then that order of the arbitral tribunal can be executed under the provisions of the Code of Civil Procedure 1908. If arbitral tribunal refuses to grant interim relief or grants interim relief, then that order is appealable under section 37(1) of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act. So once arbitrator decides this issue, the second issue which may arise before the arbitral tribunal is about interim award. On any issue on which final award can be made, if parties agree that till final award is rendered, let there be interim award, then arbitral tribunal has power to make an interim award under section 31(6). Recently, in one of the important judgments delivered by Supreme Court, it was held that a plea of limitation raised by the respondent that claims are time-barred. So arbitral tribunal took a view that claims are within time and not time-barred. Application was rejected. Supreme Court took a view that that decision of the arbitral tribunal would be an interim award and ought to have been challenged under section 31 and under section 34 within the time prescribed therein. I had occasion to decide one matter very recently. I have followed that judgment delivered by the Honorable Supreme Court. There what had happened that there was the dispute was in two parts. One was about the payability of claim and another was about the quantification. So by consent of parties, arbitral tribunal decided the payability that yes, liquidated damages should be paid by the respondent to the claimant. Now issue remained about the quantification only. So the party against whom that dispute was decided, issue was decided, did not challenge that interim award within a period of 3 months from the date of service of signed copy of the award, and he waited till the final award was rendered by the arbitral tribunal and challenged both the awards together. The respondent raised an issue how the interim award could be challenged along with final award. That part of the award has already become time barred, and this court, our court, accepted this argument that there is a separate period of limitation also for interim award, and since you have not challenged that interim award within 3 months, you cannot be allowed to challenge that interim award along with final award. There is a separate period of limitation for final award under section 34(3). That judgment is now appealed by the division bench. Now, who can be a party before the arbitral tribunal? This was an interesting issue. A party who is not a party to arbitration agreement, whether he can be impleaded as a party, that issue is also decided by our court. In one of the matter, arbitral tribunal not only permitted a third party to intervene, but arbitral tribunal also permitted a party to fully participate in the arbitral proceedings and to even cross-examine the witness of one of the party. And ultimately, arbitral tribunal passed an order of status quo as far as the third party is concerned. The third party came to court under section 34 and made a grievance that I was not party to arbitration agreement. How could any order be passed against me? I am not concerned with the internal dispute between two parties to the arbitration agreement. The High Court took a view that since he was not a party to arbitration agreement at the first instance, he could not have been permitted to be intervened in the arbitral proceedings. However, arbitral tribunal has permitted him to intervene, and therefore since he is aggrieved by that order passed by the arbitral tribunal, he will have locus to challenge that under section 34 of the Arbitration Act. In another matter where arbitral tribunal passed an interim measures against a third party who was not a party before the arbitral tribunal nor party to the arbitration agreement, and that party who was an aggrieved party filed an appeal under section 37 of the Arbitration Act before High Court. The issue raised by the other side was that since he was neither a party to arbitration agreement nor a party to arbitral proceedings, how could he file an appeal under section 37? I had occasion to decide that group of matter. I have considered section 37 and I have held that section 37 does not refer to the expression party, which is referred in other provisions of Arbitration Act. Therefore, if a party is aggrieved, then he will have no remedy to file a suit and challenge that part of the interim order or final award before any court of law. Therefore, with leave of the court, while filing an appeal under section 37, he can challenge that part of the interim order by the arbitral tribunal. That judgment also is in force, I am told, till today. Now, another source of appointment of arbitrator is that suppose the subject matter of the arbitration agreement is covered by, or the dispute before the suit is covered by the arbitration agreement. Parties to the arbitration agreement and parties to suit are same. In that event, the defendant can file an application under section 8 for appointment of arbitrator, for referring the parties to arbitration. He can point out the existence of arbitration agreement, and if other side agrees, then matter can be referred to arbitration. Otherwise, court has to take a prima facie view that arbitration agreement exists or not, provided such application is made by the defendant before filing first statement of dispute, first statement on merits. There also the view taken by Supreme Court consistently is that reply to the interlocutory proceedings by the defendant will not amount to filing of written statement. Therefore, objection can still be raised even after filing reply to interim relief under Section 8. Court has to take a prima facie view that arbitration agreement exists. In view of 2015 amendment, notwithstanding any judgment, decree or order, once court is satisfied that arbitration agreement exists, it is duty of the court to refer parties to arbitration. But in that proceeding, court has no power suo motu to appoint an arbitrator. Parties, of course, can by consent take an order of appointment of arbitrator in the same matter, but once proceedings are disposed of, suit is referred to arbitration. In that event, all rights and obligations of the parties would be governed by the provisions of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996. At this stage, I must also tell you the problem one may face. In one matter, the argument was that arbitral tribunal was appointed by High Court by consent of parties in an appeal arising out of suit. There was no arbitration agreement earlier entered into between the parties. So one retired judge of Supreme Court was appointed as an arbitrator. After some time, the learned arbitrator, for some reason, expressed inability to proceed with the arbitration proceedings. Now vacancy arose. So application for appointment of arbitrator was made before High Court under Section 11 read with Section 15 that there was a vacancy because of the resignation of the arbitrator. The other side raised an objection that there was no arbitration agreement earlier, and arbitration agreement was recorded for the first time before the High Court, and the arbitrator designated by the court was only for the limited purpose. And once that arbitrator has refused to act as arbitrator, then arbitration agreement has come to an end. You cannot appoint an arbitrator under Section 11 or under Section 15. The Supreme Court ultimately took a view in that matter in case of Sales Derevan that no, arbitration agreement would not come to an end merely because an arbitrator is appointed by a court by recording agreement between both the parties in some other proceedings. Supreme Court took a view that unless there is a bar prescribed under the arbitration agreement from filling up the vacancy or appointing a substitute arbitrator, arbitration agreement does not come to an end, and that vacancy has to be filled up by complying with the procedure prescribed under the arbitration agreement read with Section 11 and 15 of the Arbitration Act. Now, Section 11, I must tell you, when arbitrator is proposed to be appointed by court on an application under Section 11(6), then if name is agreed by the parties or court suggests a name, then before passing an order of appointment of that arbitrator, court has to take the disclosure statement from the prospective arbitrator in the format prescribed in Schedule 6 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996. But if arbitrators are appointed by the parties directly, in that event, arbitral tribunal or each member of the tribunal have to file their statement of disclosure within 15 days from the date of they are approached as arbitrator. In that event, parties may decide whether to challenge an appointment of the arbitral tribunal or not on the ground of qualification, or that he may be biased, he will not be neutral, he will not be impartial. So that challenge procedure is prescribed under Section 13 of the Arbitration Act. Within 2 weeks, the parties who want to challenge the appointment of the arbitrator can file that application. But normally what happens is, my experience I am sharing with you, that 99% arbitral tribunal or members of tribunal, they will not resign. Nobody will say that I will be biased, or I will not be neutral, or I will not be impartial. Once he decides that he passes that order, then unfortunate part under the Arbitration Act is that you have to wait till the final award is rendered by the arbitral tribunal, and then that order along with final award can be challenged under section 34. In section 12, there was a substantial amendment in 2015. Section 12 has to be read with Schedule 5 and 7. Schedule 5 provided for a list of circumstances, and 7 provides again for some such circumstances. 5 is a guide and 7 provides for disqualification. What is that Schedule 5 and 7? It gives a list which would indicate that the arbitrator whose name is suggested by the party or who is appointed by parties without intervention of court, they should not be even slightly related to or interested in the subject matter of the dispute. If they don't disclose and parties come to know little later, then even at that stage, the appointment of such party can be challenged. So Schedule 5 and Schedule 7 are very important. If any one of you are proposed to be appointed as arbitrator, please refer to Schedule 5 and Schedule 7. And if you fall under that category, then be honest to disclose that you would be disqualified if appointed. Don't accept that brief as arbitrator. Many other briefs will come to you. Then under section 15, if arbitrator dies or he resigns or proceedings are terminated for any reasons, then you can apply for appointment of a substitute arbitrator. You have to follow the same procedure which what is prescribed in the arbitration agreement for appointment of arbitrator. Under section 11, there was another drastic amendment which I must bring it to your notice. One of the amendment was that arbitral tribunal now would be appointed by the arbitral institutions. That amendment was also brought on record along with section 43I, which provides for constitution of Arbitral Council of India, which will be consisting of 7 members of the council. 2 or 3 members would be appointed by government. 1 member will be either Supreme Court judge or Chief Justice of High Court or any judge of High Court or eminent person, and many other. There is a qualification prescribed under section 43I. But so far that section is not notified. Therefore, once it is notified, then that Council of Arbitration would give grading to the arbitral institutions who would be allowed to appoint arbitrators. Once that provision is put in place, then the powers of appointment of arbitrator under section 11 would be redundant. Then another amendment under section 11 which was interesting was Schedule 4 is inserted. Schedule 4 prescribes for fees of the arbitrator, because there was a lot of hue and cry that arbitrators are charging very exorbitantly. Therefore, under section 1114, subject to rules that may be framed by the High Court, Schedule 4 was prescribed. Under Schedule 4, the minimum fees prescribed was 45,000 in case of claim is a particular amount, and maximum amount of fees prescribed is 20 lakhs if the 30 lakhs if the claim is more than 20 crores. But if there is a sole arbitrator appointed, then he is entitled to 25% more arbitration fees. Now, what has happened is that our High Court has framed arbitration rules by exercising powers under section 1114, and we have clarified one more thing in that rule, that claim includes counterclaim. So if counterclaim is also filed by one of the party, and if claim is say 30 lakhs and counterclaim is another 50 lakhs. So total would be 80 lakhs. So you will not get separate fees for counterclaim. The upper limit prescribed under Schedule 4 is only 30 lakhs. Now, some of my arbitrators friends are grumbling about this, that how can you frame such rules? You don't pay separate fees for counterclaim when Section 38 provides that arbitral tribunal is empowered to charge separate deposit for counterclaim. So separate fees for claim, separate fees for counterclaim. But our court relied upon a Delhi High Court judgment which says that if two separate fees would be provided, one for claim and one for counterclaim, then the whole purpose of providing the efficacious remedy by charging economical fees would be redundant. So there is no question of two separate fees, one for counterclaim and one for claim. But fact remains that there was no simultaneous amendment carried out to Section 38 when so many amendments were carried out by the legislature. Now, the problem we are facing because of that Schedule 4, that also I must share as a student of law, that Schedule 4 applies only if arbitrator is appointed under Section 11 of the Arbitration Act. But if arbitrator is appointed by the parties outside the intervention of court, without intervention of court, or arbitral tribunal is appointed under Section 9 of the Arbitration Act, or arbitral tribunal is appointed under Section 89 by Supreme Court or by any other court or by judicial authority, then those arbitral tribunal or members of tribunal, they may not be bound by Schedule 4 fees. So outside the intervention, one arbitrator will get whatever amount he wants to charge, and the poor arbitrator who is appointed by High Court under Section 11 will get according to Schedule 4. This is a lacuna in one of my judgment. I had made this recommendation that there should be uniformity as far as charging of fees by the arbitral tribunal is concerned, whether arbitrator is appointed under Section 9 or under Section 13 or by institute. Otherwise, there is disparity. If this goes on like this, then a party who wants to suggest a particular arbitrator, both the parties will file an application before High Court under Section 11 and will get the same arbitrator appointed by High Court. So what fees that arbitrator could charge at his whims, he will not be allowed to charge if he is appointed by High Court. This is the situation about the fees. Now, in one matter, the issue arose whether, or I'll rather go to Section 21, limitation. Now, that is very crucial and important section. Section 21 has to be read with Section 43 of the Arbitration Act. Section 43 says that arbitral proceeding commences when a notice for appointment of arbitrator is issued by one party and received by another party. So that is the commencement of arbitral proceedings. Not unlike limitation in case of a suit. In case of a suit, when a plaint is lodged, limitation stops. But in case of arbitration, limitation stops when a notice for appointment of arbitrator is received by the other side. This is the basic difference between the provisions of Limitation Act and in case of arbitration. In one matter, I had occasion to decide where there was a dispute that notice for appointment of arbitrator was not received by the other side. The party who invoked arbitration, he straightway appointed the arbitrator and filed his statement of claim before the arbitrator. The other side raised an issue of limitation that by the time statement of claim was filed before the arbitrator, limitation had already expired. So claim should be rejected and on that ground. Then the arbitrator decided that no, I was approached, therefore limitation had already stopped. Statement of claim was already filed before me. So the High Court took a view that no, the party who is issuing a notice under Section 21 for appointment of arbitrator, he has to prove that such notice was received by the other side. If it is not received by the other side, then arbitral proceedings do not commence and there is no question of stoppage of limitation. Now, one interesting matter arose before this court and ultimately Supreme Court decided an issue that suppose a party, he gives a notice for appointment of arbitrator to the other side. He points out his disputes. Other side refuses to appoint arbitrator. Matter goes to arbitration. A, who had given a notice for appointment of arbitrator, he files his statement of claim. And after 3 years of that notice, during the pendency of proceedings, the respondent files a counterclaim. So issue of limitation was raised by the claimant that as far as counterclaim is concerned, it is time barred because arbitral proceedings have not commenced in respect of the counterclaim because he had not given any separate notice for appointment of arbitrator. Supreme Court ultimately took a view that section 21 refers to the notice in respect of particular dispute. Therefore, if disputes which respondent wants to refer to arbitration, then he also ought to have given a separate notice for appointment of arbitrator and for referring his disputes to arbitration. Since he did not give that notice and he straightway filed his counterclaim before the arbitral tribunal, then insofar as counterclaim is concerned, proceedings would commence only on the date of filing counterclaim and limitation would stop only on that date. Therefore, by that time, 3 years were already over. Therefore, Supreme Court held that counterclaims were barred by law of limitation. This was another very interesting issue. Now, there was also amendment in section 23 in 2015 because there was a lot of hue and cry that arbitral tribunal is not deciding the proceedings. There is no time prescribed. There is no time prescribed for filing pleadings. Therefore, in 2019, there is an amendment that pleadings now have to be filed within 6 months from the date the arbitrators are given notice to appoint. That has to be read with section 29A. What is the relevance of section 29A? 29A is inserted with the view to prescribe a time limit for making an award. Prior to 23rd October 2015, there was no time prescribed for making an award. Now, because of this, there was a lot of hue and cry that there is arbitration proceedings are not disposed of expeditiously. Therefore, section 29A was inserted and 12 months time was prescribed for making an award from the date the arbitrator is approached in connection with his appointment. But the 12 months were not found sufficient. So another amendment came which says that 6 months time for filing pleadings and 12 months will start after expiry of 6 months. And by consent of parties within 6 months, 6 months extension can be granted, and thereafter the court has power to grant extension. Now I will quickly go to the other 1 or 2 sections. Section 31 provides that signed copy of the award should be made available to both the parties by the arbitrator himself. That is 31.5. 31.3 talks about recording of reasons. The relevance of signed copy of the arbitral award is that limitation for challenging an arbitral award under section 34.3 starts from the date of service of signed copy of the award from the arbitrator. If arbitrator has not served a copy of the signed copy of the award, in that event limitation does not start. One of the party who has received a copy of the award, he may try to serve his copy of the award on the other side for enforcement, but that would not commence the period of limitation. There are disputes before the executing court. When a party does not challenge an award within 3 months, the other party applies for enforcement. The party who has not been served with copy of the award will say that I have not been served. In that event, the arbitral records are called for to see whether copy of the signed copy of the award has been served upon the parties or not. That is the relevance of section 31(5). Then 34 is the section which provides for a remedy to challenge an interim award or final award. Now there are grounds set out in section 34. There is a checkered history how this law has been developed in last several years. One of the leading judgment delivered in 2003 was in case of ONGC versus Shaw Pipes, and thereafter the law has developed. In 2015, an amendment came to be inserted in section 34, and the ground of patent illegality is inserted, 34(2)(a). Various judgments have taken a view that in case of perversity in the award, there may be a ground of challenge. But now in view of section 34(2)(a), inserting the ground of patent illegality, Supreme Court recently has taken a view in case of Sangyong, authored by the Honorable My Lord Justice Nariman, and has taken a view that the award which could be set aside on the ground of perversity can be now set aside on the ground of patent illegality. If vital documents are not considered by the arbitral tribunal, that may also amount to patent illegality, and award can be set aside on that ground. If section 34 petition is decided one way or the other, then remedy lies under section 36. Now before I go to 36, now section 36 says that if proceedings are dismissed under section 34, then there is no automatic stay. You file a petition and apply for stay under section 36. Prior to this amendment of 2015, the position was that once you file a petition within the time prescribed under section 34(3), then there was an automatic stay. Award could not be enforced till that arbitration petition was dismissed by the court. But by virtue of this amendment in 2015, there was no automatic stay. But again, there was a controversy whether this amendment of 2015 was applicable to the pending proceedings where arbitration proceedings had already commenced prior to 23rd October 2015 or not. Supreme Court in case of BCCI versus Kochi Cricket took a view that no, there will be no automatic stay also in respect of the proceedings which were pending on the date of such amendment, and even the proceedings where notice invoking arbitration agreement was issued prior to 23rd October 2015, you will have to apply for stay. If court is satisfied that it is a case of unconditional stay, court can consider, otherwise court will put you on terms. Section 36 also says that it is ultimately at the discretion of the court on what terms you impose on the party for grant of stay. Section 37 is the section which provides for appeal. All orders are not appealable, let me tell you. Only specific orders under section 8, refusing the parties to refer to refusal by the court to refer parties to arbitration, that is one of the appealable order. Order passed by arbitral tribunal under section 17, refusing or granting interim measures is appealable. Order under section 16, accepting the plea of jurisdiction is appealable. Order under section 9, passed by the court, is appealable. Order under section 34 is also appealable. So these are the orders which are appealable under section 37. This has to be read with section 5. Why section 5 is relevant? Because section 5 provides that court has limited judicial intervention. Now, what are the proceedings prescribed under the Arbitration Act? If your proceedings are other than those proceedings, then court will not be allowed to intervene. So the proceedings allowed under the Arbitration Act, one proceeding is under section 8, then section 9, then section 11, then section 14, section 15, then after 15 it is 27, then 29A, and then 34. So these are the only proceedings. If you advise your client that our arbitral tribunal has refused to permit your client to cross-examine a witness, or he has refused to grant adjournment, you challenge his order. That is not permissible. If you file such proceedings, it will be contrary to section 5 and it would be dismissed by the court. I'll just take only 2 minutes more. Recently, Supreme Court has decided about the period of limitation in filing section 37 appeal. Because 34(3) provides for limitation for challenging an award, but there was no limitation prescribed under section 37 for filing an appeal. So in one of the matter arising out of section 34, the matter reached Supreme Court, and Supreme Court has recently taken a view that limitation for filing an appeal under section 37 would be 90 days plus 30 days. Supreme Court took a view that under section 34 there is a limitation of 3 months. So 3 months plus 30 days as grace period under section 5, and held that appeal is continuation of the trial court proceedings. Therefore, 120 days period of limitation would apply to proceedings under section 37. Beyond 120 days, court has no power to condone any delay. Section 87, validity of section 87 was challenged before the Honorable Supreme Court directly in case of Hindustan Construction Limited versus Union of India. On the ground, now section 87 was inserted in 2015 with a view to clarify which provisions of 2015 Act would be applicable to which proceedings, whether it will apply to pending proceedings prior to 23rd October 2015 or only proceedings filed subsequent to 23rd October 2015. However, Supreme Court has struck down the said provision as arbitrary under Article 14, and as a result of that, the clarificatory section 87 is no more in existence. As far as execution proceedings are concerned, because some of our judges would be dealing with execution proceedings, now you are not required to file an execution application before the court which heard the matter or where award could be challenged. If the assets of the judgment debtor are situated in some other state or other district, then you can make an application for execution directly before that court. There are so many other topics on which I could say something more, but because of the time constraint, I stop my lecture here, and thank you very much. All your questions, I will try my best to answer as far as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my lord. With your kind permission, my lord, may I put up the questions?
Yes.
My lord, one question is whether it is mandatory to issue notice for appointment of arbitrator or directly a petition can be filed under section 11.
Notice for appointment of arbitrator is necessary in view of section 21 of the Arbitration Act, because the arbitration proceeding commences when notice for appointment of arbitrator is issued under section 21. The notice is must for appointment of arbitrator.
My lord, next question, I think your honor has already dealt with. Still, the viewer must have missed it. Can a party intervene in main arbitration proceedings?
Are you referring to proceedings before the arbitral tribunal?
Yes, my lord.
No, a party who is not a party to arbitration agreement cannot be allowed to intervene before the arbitral proceedings. He can exercise his own remedy available in law. He cannot be allowed to intervene.
Thank you, my lord. Next question is, my lord, can section 17 application be filed before the tribunal before filing statement of claim?
Supreme Court in case of MD Army Welfare in 2004 has touched this issue that unless statement of claim is first filed, there is no question of the party approaching the court under section 17, because you don't know what is the final relief you are going to seek. because interim relief is in aid of final relief. Therefore, you can't apply for interim relief before filing statement of claim.
Thanks, my lord. Now, some questions are there regarding the challenge to the award. First question is, my lord, if an arbitrator passes an award exceeding his jurisdiction, will it be void ab initio, or he will have to, the aggrieved party will have to appeal for cancellation of that?
Even if arbitral tribunal has decided by exceeding his jurisdiction, party cannot treat that award as void ab initio. Void ab initio or not, it has to be decided by the court of law. Therefore, he will have to challenge that award under section 34 within the time prescribed.
My lord, one viewer asked for a little more elaboration.
Yes.
What is meant by patent illegality in setting aside an award, for setting aside an award?
Patent illegality, recently in case of Senjong, the judgment authored by my Lord Justice Nariman, he has clarified that if the award could be set aside on the ground of perversity, then in view of the amendment to section 34(2)(a), with effect from 23rd October 2015, such award can be set aside on the ground of patent illegality. Because the ground of perversity has gone now in view of this amendment with effect from 23rd October 2015. There is patent illegality in the sense, suppose you decide which cannot be decided by you. Action in rem, it is decided by the arbitrator. Nobody raised the objection, or even if objection is raised, but still he has decided. Or a vital document is not considered, vital piece of evidence is not considered. Even that will amount to patent illegality. Several judgments have come from Supreme Court and even by our court, even after the judgment of Supreme Court in case of Senjong.
Thank you, my lord. This question pertains to minority view of the award. What is the status of minority view in the award?
Minority award is not binding. If it is a tribunal of 3 members, majority award will prevail. Minority award even can't be challenged. Even if 2 members tribunal award is set aside, nothing happens to minority award because it has no value.
My lord, the next question pertains to limitation.
Yes.
Whether section 5 of Limitation Act is applicable to setting aside arbitration award under section 34.
Section 5 of the Limitation Act is not applicable. This issue was decided number of times. The first judgment was in case of Union of India versus Popular Construction, which has been consistently followed, and very recent judgment, even last year, has taken the same view that arbitral tribunal, that the court has no power to condone delay beyond 30 days after 3 months, whatever may be the circumstances, and the 30 days also can be condoned only if sufficient cause is made out. At this juncture, I must share with you one important judgment on this issue.
Sir.
Before Supreme Court, the judgment authored by the Honorable Chief Justice Lodha, as his lordship then was. The issue was that whether limitation for challenging an award under section 34 is 3 months or 3 months plus 30 days. There what had happened, that 3 months had expired and 30th day that fell on some Sunday. So petition was filed on the next day after expiry of 30th day. The argument before the Supreme Court was that no, limitation is not 3 months plus 30 days. Limitation is 3 months only. 30 days is grace period. Supreme Court took a view that yes, limitation is 3 months only. Therefore, the benefit of section 4 of Limitation Act cannot be extended to such situation. 4 would have been applicable if there was no limitation prescribed, inbuilt under section 34(3). Yes.
Thank you, my lord. Now this question, my lord, your honor has stated that there is no procedure of taking the transfer decree, etc. The award can be directly applied for execution before the court where the property is situated.
Yes.
This question is related to that. Whether the arbitration execution petition can be directly filed in civil court without filing it in the district court.
It can be filed in the civil court. Where the property is situated, you can file it directly there.
I think viewer is asking about probably filing before the senior division court directly.
No. You see, the property is situated within the territorial jurisdiction of a court.
Yes, sir.
In that court, you have to apply whether it is before the civil court, junior division or senior division. It makes no difference. Powers are same.
So, thanks, sir. And
Yes.
there are some questions relating to lockdown effect, my lord. I will take up them later on.
Yes.
Because your honor were supposed to.
I'll cover that topic also.
Before that, I will take the remaining questions, sir.
Yes.
Award upheld by section 34 and 37. Can Supreme Court set aside award for specific performance of agreement entered in long back in 2001? That is before. Pardon, I would like to request the viewers not to pose the questions pertaining to pending matters.
No, apart from that, the Supreme Court can set aside or not, that I can't reply.
Sir. So my request, my humble request will be to the viewers not to pose the questions pertaining to the pending matters.
Yes.
This is my humble request. And I have received many more questions, sir, late questions. Whether transfer certificate under Order 21 Rule 5 is necessary for execution of award passed by arbitrator residing at another state or place where the respondent is not residing or property is not situated.
Transfer certificate is not required.
Sir, question is views on party autonomy in appointment of arbitral tribunal. Some light on the party autonomy in appointment of arbitral tribunal.
As I had already covered that in my first part,
yes,
in case of Perkins, Supreme Court has now taken a view that party autonomy is given a go by now. Any party who is exclusive power to appoint arbitrator, he has an interest in the subject matter, cannot exercise that power exclusively. Arbitrator can be appointed only by both the parties.
Thank you, Lordship. One more question is, what happens when Section 9 application is converted into Section 17 application?
Yes. When Section 9 application is converted into Section 17, then that application will be tried before the arbitral tribunal, and he will exercise all his powers prescribed under Section 17. And once he decides one way or the other, and if that order is not challenged, then that order will be enforceable as an order of court under CPC.
Thank you, my lord. One question which has been always asked, I think it was settled. Does principal civil court of original jurisdiction in district court means only principal district judge or all district judges?
Now, in view of the amendment to Maharashtra Civil Code, this issue is sorted out. Now even all district judges are also given assignment of arbitration matters.
Thank you, my lord. Next question is, can a respondent file Section 17 application without filing a counterclaim?
No, he also cannot file counterclaim, cannot file Section 17 application without counterclaim.
Next question is, sir, when an ex parte matter, in an ex parte matter, can arbitrator extend 6 months under Section 29A(3) without taking permission from respondent, since that party is not participating?
That extension can be granted by consent of both parties only. If one party is not cooperating, then the other party on expiry of the period can apply under Section 29A(4) before court.
How the arbitrator will serve the copy of award to the respondent if the award is ex parte?
It can be served, he has to give notice to the other side, or if necessary, a public notice can be issued for service of award, because limitation will not start till a signed copy of the award is served on the other side.
sir, the question is, if a party who was not a party to the agreement, however, he was allowed to take part in the arbitration proceeding since his role was important, but the lawyer's miscommunication, if he could not file the affidavit, arbitrator decided due to the limitation. And what is the remedy for the third party in such situation?
First of all, third party could not have been
Yes.
there before the arbitral tribunal. But if he is aggrieved, he was there rightly or wrongly, and he was aggrieved by the order passed by the arbitral tribunal, then his remedy would be under section 34. I already decided that case in case of Gera's case and one Shah. If you want that citation, I can give you. Both these judgments are 2 years old. I'll have to locate.
My lord, yes, my lord.
Another question.
My lord, there are two more requests for some citations. So may I suggest to have that compilation and make them available to all the viewers.
Take the question. I'll give citation.
Yes. Yes, my lord. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Next question is, according to the viewer, Commercial Code Act provides that a pre-litigation mediation, if settled, then it would be an arbitral award.
It will not be an arbitral award.
Yes, I think that's what I. And the question was whether such arbitral award can be challenged. It can't be an arbitral award. It will be mediations.
It cannot be an award within the meaning of arbitral award prescribed under Arbitration Act, because that is not arbitration proceedings.
Yes, my lord. Mediation. My lord, next question is whether district courts can entertain section 11 or 31 petitions in domestic arbitration. This is a very simple question.
Section 11 application cannot be entertained by district court. It can be entertained only by High Court or by Supreme Court, as the case may be. And section 34 can be entertained by district court depending upon the jurisdiction.
This is a question related to stamping.
Yes.
Whether arbitration award needs to be sufficiently stamped at the place where the award was delivered or where the property is situated for execution proceeding.
Arbitration award, as far as Maharashtra is concerned, that is award is on a very negligible amount, I think 500 rupees only. In some of the states, arbitration award is required to be stamped, where it is a very substantial amount. So, as far as Maharashtra is concerned, it will be where the award is published by the arbitrator.
Thank you, my lord. Next question is whether notice of appointment of arbitrator under section 85 of Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act is necessary. Notice of appointment of arbitrator is necessary.
Notice for appointment of arbitrator will be necessary in that case also. And then under section 84 of the Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act, Central Registrar has got power to appoint arbitrator.
My lord, question is when a respondent opposed appointment of arbitrator before the Honorable High Court, can respondent thereafter file counter claim in arbitration proceeding?
Respondent can file counter claim before the arbitral proceedings. He has lost before the High Court. His opposition is rejected. Now he is before the arbitrator. Therefore, under section 23, he can be allowed to file counter claim, provided that counter claim is within the parameters of arbitration agreement. That is the amendment in 2015.
Thank you, my lord. This is a new topic related question. New question. Whether arbitrator can decide fraud committed during proceedings or fraud committed during agreement.
This view is now consistently taken by Supreme Court in case of Ayasami. The judgment authored by my Lord Justice Chandrachud in Supreme Court has held that if there are serious allegations of fraud which will lead to criminal prosecution, in that event, matter cannot be referred to arbitration. Otherwise, simple allegations can be considered by the arbitral tribunal.
My Lord, this question pertains to the providing copy of the award and payment of the remuneration to the arbitrator.
Yes.
If one of the parties do not pay the arbitrator his fee, then can the arbitrator withhold the award? And when will limitation start for filing Section 34 application in that case for the party who has not paid?
Interesting.
Sir.
So arbitrator can claim lien under Section 38 of the Arbitration Conciliation Act on the award as far as that part of the fees is concerned. But arbitral tribunal has been permitted to take contribution of the other side from the other side. If other side also refuses to pay because he has already paid his fees and he may not agree to pay the contribution of the other side, in that event, the party who is aggrieved by that award, he can file a petition for directing the arbitral tribunal to file that award in court. In that event, court will pass an order that let arbitrator file that award in court, and the party who is defaulter in payment of court arbitrator's fees, that party will be first asked to deposit the areas of the fees of the arbitrator, and then court will decide out of that amount how much amount should be paid to the arbitrator. That is the scheme of Section 38.
Thank you, my lord. Next question is whether Section 47 of CPC is applicable to execution of arbitration award.
Yes. Under Section 36, award has to be executed as if a decree of court, and therefore all provisions of CPC applicable for execution of the decree will be applicable to execution of award also.
My lord, next question is, upon notification of arbitration council, will that be dealing with only the powers that are currently vested with the court under Section 11, or other provisions such as 834 will also be transferred to the council?
No, Council of Arbitration is not empowered to deal with any matter. Council is supposed to be appointed for the purpose of laying guidelines and policies for effective hearing and proceedings of the arbitral tribunal, and such council will also give grading to the arbitral institutions, and once grading is given to such arbitral institutions, those arbitral institutions will be notified by the court, and then those institutions will be allowed to appoint arbitrator.
Thank you, my lord. This is related to the execution, my lord. Whether execution can be stayed if the copy of award is not served on the respondent.
If copy of the award is not served on the respondent, then limitation does not start, and therefore there is no question of filing any execution application. If execution application is filed, then other side can point out that award has not been served. Therefore, there is no question of any filing of execution application because limitation has not commenced. You can apply for stay.
Thank you, my lord.
Stay by filing an application under Section 34.
Yes.
The ground that execution applications are filed, and though there was no limitation commenced. Yes.
My lord, the question is, what is the remedy to a respondent who is already a party to the proceeding before the arbitrator and is in need for interim reliefs and has not filed CC?
You see, the principles which apply to the interim relief to be applied by the claimant, same thing will apply to the respondent also, because if interim relief is granted which is not subject matter of the final relief, then there will be problem. In case of Deccan Chronicle versus BCCI, I had occasion to take that. It was argued before me, but that point was not decided. But there was a reference made to the case of MD RB Welfare Judgment Supreme Court.
My lord, there are two questions pertaining to the parties. In a tripartite agreement between A, B, and C, if the arbitration clause only pertains to issues between A and B only, then can C be brought in as a joint respondent?
If he is a party to arbitration agreement, then he can be implemented as a party. But if there is no relief sought against him, then he can apply for his deletion or for rejection of the claim against him. Or the claimant himself may decide if there is no relief against the third party, then he may not implement him.
My lord, next question is, if application under section 8 is filed, can court refer all defendants to arbitration when few of them are not signatory parties?
If you see, for applicability of section 8, the parties to the arbitration agreement and parties to suit and subject matter of arbitration agreement and subject matter of suit should be same. There can't be any split of cause of action. That was the view taken by Supreme Court in Sukanya holding, which is still in field. That is repeatedly followed by our court as well as by Supreme Court. Sukanya holding.
The question, my lord, pertains to, in bank matters, bank file all arbitration proceeding before one and same arbitrator, whether it is valid or respondent can make an objection.
This issue was raised before Justice Kathawala in one matter where learned arbitrator was appointed in more than 800 matters by the finance company. So Bombay High Court has removed that arbitrator and took a view that this is not permissible because a person who is appointed again and again, if he is appointed, then there is no question of getting any justice to the other party. But anyway, that is taken care of by virtue of Schedule 5 and Schedule 7 inserted in 2015. And now in view of the judgment of Supreme Court in case of Perkins.
My lord, what is the remedy to a respondent who is already a party to proceedings before the arbitrator and is, sorry, I have repeated that question.
Yes.
Whether ex parte suit matter is can be referred to arbitrator, whether in ex parte suit, can the court refer the matter to the arbitrator?
No, court cannot refer ex parte suit to arbitration because under section 89, unless both parties consent, matter cannot be referred to arbitration.
My lord, there are a few questions pertaining to the COVID effect.
Yes. Yes.
If you are, I think my lord would first speak on that and then we'll.
You ask me a question, I will cover it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Period of lockdown will be excluded from 12 months time frame for completion of arbitration proceeding.
You see, there was a representation made to Supreme Court recently, and problem also arose what will happen to limitation for challenging an award under section 34 of the Arbitration Act. Because if you are unable to file your petition under 34 and there is no power to condone delay beyond 30 days, then there will be a difficult situation. Taking care of that, Supreme Court in a suo motu writ civil number 3 of 2020 has taken a view. I'll just read that paragraph, it will be for benefit of all of you. It is hereby ordered that all periods of limitation prescribed under the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996 and under section 138 of Negotiable Instrument Act 1881 shall be extended with effect from 15th March 2020 till further orders to be passed by this court in the present proceedings. This court means Supreme Court. It further says, in case the limitation has expired after 15 March 2020, then the period from 15 March 2020 till the date on which the lockdown is lifted in the jurisdictional area where the dispute lies or where the cause of action arises shall be extended for a period of 15 days after the lifting of the lockdown. So that is taken care of. After 15 March, if limitation falls, then it is automatically extended by the judge.
Related question is, my lord, Can further extension of 6 months will start after lockdown is over?
So that is taken care of, because all limitation falling beyond 15 March will be extended till 15 days after lockdown is lifted. So 29A, suppose 6 months have expired, then you have to apply to court under section 29A for extension. You are not able to make that application, and that period falls after 15 March 2020. In that event, it is automatically extended till 15 days after lockdown is lifted.
My lord will now address on that issue. Limitations. Yes.
Limitation I already covered
Yes,
in response to your question.
yes.
The problem what we are all facing is because of this lockdown, arbitral proceedings are not able to be conducted. More particularly where there is a tribunal of 3 members. So if physical hearing is not possible, then by video, 3 arbitrators sitting at 3 different places cannot record evidence particularly. And even during the course of argument, if all of them have to discuss the matter, that also may not be possible then and there. If they want to ask any question to the lawyers or to the party in person, that will not be possible. So this is one drawback. But if matter is only for argument, then 3 arbitrators can discuss the matter subsequently, but without asking any question to the litigant or to the advocate. That is another drawback. So this is the problem. But, and more particularly evidence, because if suppose one witness is sitting in a room and you don't see, you are not able to see the other people sitting in the room, you may be trying to give some hint to the witness. So that will not be possible in case of a video conference. This is another problem. Yes.
My lord, some questions are later on received. Some are relevant. I think I may be allowed to put up them.
No, you continue. I have no problem.
Yes, my lord. Thank you, my lord. Thank you. Does the 2015 amendment affect the decisiveness of sanctity of the arbitral agreement, thus not allowing it till a later stage?
Means what?
The amendments, 2015 amendments are there. Whether the amendment affects the decisiveness of the sanctity of the arbitral agreement, thus not allowing it to till a later stage.
I don't. Sorry, I have not followed this question. Is he trying to say that what is the validity of the arbitration agreement after 23rd October 2015?
Yes, my lord. Yes.
Yes, I'll deal with that. Arbitration agreement will remain as it is. Whenever dispute arises, if dispute arises prior to 23rd October 2015, then it will be governed by those provisions. And if it is after 23rd October 2015, agreement will not come to an end. Agreement will continue. You can invoke the amended provisions, subject to what the Supreme Court has said in case of BCCI versus Kochi Cricket and in case of Hindustan Construction versus Union of India.
Thank you, my lord. Next question is, during the pendency of section 9, objection as to arbitration clause is raised. Whether court can still grant relief under section 9?
See, court has to take a prima facie view whether arbitration agreement exists or not. If court is of the view that arbitration agreement exists, then interim relief can be granted and matter can be referred to arbitration.
In many cases, especially when the arbitral awards are passed ex parte, the judgment debtors raise a plea before the execution court that there was no proper service. How to deal with such situation?
Executing court cannot go beyond the award. If the party his remedy was to challenge that ex parte award under section 34 within the time prescribed. And if section 34 court says that yes, he was not served and he was unable to meet his case, that is one of the ground under section 34, then that award can be set aside. But executing court can't go into all this for the first time.
If arbitration proceedings commenced before amendment, then whether there is any limitation for declaring award?
The proceedings have commenced before amendment of 2015. That time there was no limitation prescribed. Limitation was inserted only with effect on 23rd October 2015. In those matters, there is no need to apply for extension of time under section 29A(4).
Sir, one of the viewer has been kind enough to post one authority which Your Honor was referring. Citation: third party locus to file a section 34 petition who is aggrieved by the award. That is a judgment and order dated 27th January 2017 in arbitration petition number 1345 of 2012. Rajan R. Gera versus Memon Cooperative Bank, and that was decided by Your Honor. He pointed out that. Thank you to the viewer. My lord, request is, in Your Honor's opinion, how feasible is documents only arbitration in the current scenario? Documents only.
No, you can't decide only on the basis of documents. You have to give opportunity. Otherwise, the whole purpose of proving your case will be defeated.
My lord, whether application under section 34.
I must also share one more thing here.
Sir.
This is section 19 of the Arbitration Act says that arbitral tribunal is not bound by provisions of CPC and Evidence Act. But Supreme Court consistently, as well as our court, has taken a view that though arbitral tribunal is not bound by provisions of CPC and Evidence Act, but principles of natural justice applies even to arbitral proceedings. And principles of natural justice means an unproved document or unproved fact cannot be relied upon for delivering any judgment.
Thank you, my lord. One interesting question. Can there be a clause in a contract where the power of appointment of arbitrator is given only to one side, like in government contracts?
That is now deprecated by Supreme Court in case of Perkins. The Supreme Court has held that only one party cannot be allowed to appoint arbitrator who has interest in the subject matter of dispute. That part of the clause has gone now.
My lord, question is, can arbitrator appoint court receiver, High Court Bombay, for any immobile property?
No, arbitrator cannot appoint court receiver. I have already decided that issue. Justice Kathaula has actually decided first, where one of the retired judge of our court, I will not name, had appointed a court receiver, and that order was challenged by a third party whose goods were taken possession of by the court receiver. So our court took a view that arbitrator can appoint a private receiver and not court receiver, because court receiver's machinery is attached to the court. And the private receiver can be appointed by the arbitrator.
My lord, question is, if the whether all the 2019 amendments are now made applicable?
All 2019 amendments are not made applicable. Some of the sections are not notified. Only few sections are notified. More particularly, section 43, which is the chapter inserted for appointment of Council of Arbitration and framing of rules. That chapter is not yet notified.
My lord, this question pertains to the present period. Whether arbitration go on virtual hearing?
It depends on the issue. It is matter of convenience of the parties and arbitral tribunal. If everybody is agreeable, then there is no dispute. It can go on. We are also doing that in court.
My lord, we have covered almost all the questions. Some questions are there which are not directly either to the subject or repeated. So viewers may kindly excuse me for not repeating them. And my lord, some viewers have requested for citations of the judgments which were referred to.
I'll give definitely. I'll give share those questions.
My lord, your honor can give us to the academy and we will share them with the bar council and our district courts.
Definitely.
Yes, my lord. And some viewers have requested for a recorded session also. I think Chetan, we can make them available this session.
So it is already being recorded and it will be put on YouTube, and I will be sharing the link with the academy itself.
Thank you very much.
My lord, with your honor's kind permission, I may render vote of thanks. My lord, your honor has been pleased to deal with main aspects in a short time. The subject which your honor has covered is very useful for all sections, judges, arbitrators, and the advocates, practitioners. And your honor has have elaborately explained even the recent amendments, the pre-amendment position and post-amendment position. My lord, even for beginners also, especially for new lawyers and especially judges of civil judge, junior division and senior division also, this subject is very important. Your honor has been pleased to make it very clear to all of them. On behalf of the viewers and our academy, advocates, I express my gratitude and a vote of thanks to your honor. Thank you very much, sir.
On behalf of Maharashtra Judicial Academy, as an officiating director, I thank all of you, the entire team of Mr. Yallagada, Mr. Singh, on behalf of SSC Online, and all the organizers who have jointly come together and given me opportunity to share my experience with all of you. Thank you very much.
My lord, with your kind permission, I humbly express my vote of thanks to our Honorable Chief Justice, the Patron-in-Chief of the Maharashtra Judicial Academy, and all Honorable Chief Justices, and our all Honorable Lordships and Ladyships who are pleased to participate and attend in this webinar. And I express my gratitude and thanks to the CPC Bombay High Court who made this possible by providing the assistance at the High Court level. And I express my thanks to the Registrar Generals and Registrars of our High Court and all High Courts. And my special thanks to the faculty members and directors and their team of all State Judicial Academy who have been kind enough to pass on the link to the today's webinar. And I express my thanks to the principal judges of Maharashtra, Goa, Daman, Diu, and all other states also who have been pleased to cooperate with us to spread this dissemination of knowledge. And I express my thanks to the special thanks to the chairperson and secretary and office bearers of the Maharashtra Bar Council of Maharashtra and Goa who have coordinated and collaborated with us. And I express my special thanks to the president and his team members of the Consumer Courts Advocates Association Mumbai, and I express my special thanks to the office bearers of the interactive sessions of the Lady Lawyers Mumbai. All these three associations have taken much efforts to bring this webinar reachable to all the advocates. I express my special thanks. And I hope that they will join the academy in further webinars also which on these subjects which are relevant for them. And I express my thanks to the advocates who joined this webinar and posed their questions which made this webinar an interactive session. And I express my thanks to the all participants, and my special thanks to the SSC online team, Suman Malik sir and Karan Malik sir and Sri Sanjay Kapoor sir and my co-host Sri Chetan Singh Shergill for providing this flawless platform for this webinar. Thank you very much. Without your help, we could not have done this. And I express my thanks to our teammates. And once again, I express my gratitude to our honorable lordship and director for making us these kind of arrangements. Thank you. We will meet again in the next webinar. Thank you for all.
Thank you so much, sir. Have a good day, sir, and thank you everyone for joining us. Take care. We take a leave now.